Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Uh, Almost July. Yeah, we've been having the Dragon Boat Festival. It's been a long holiday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And since this is the first holiday since they've been cleared here in Taiwan for domestic travel, it's packed out there. Everything is sold out. No place to stay, and traffic and people and busy. So this has been a really good time to hunker down, stay low, hang around the homestead, get some chores done around the place. But I'm coming to you just about 3:30 in the afternoon. Hot outside. Not so bad in here. I ran the air conditioning for a while and had the fans going, and then I turned it off because the noise would be distracting, or I worried that the noise would be distracting at least. So why have I been? It's really interesting that traditionally my meditation time has been wee hours of 4 to 6 a.m., 7 at the latest, and then around dusk. So dawn and dusk has been my traditional meditation times. And in this hot summer, I don't know, given with everything else that's going on with me, and I've mentioned in my last two videos, I think my last two sharings have marked a transitional time for me because something big has been happening. I'm not sure of the extent. I know a little bit about the content, but I'm not sure about the duration. I'm not sure what's going to emerge after this, but it is a transition, and something will come from the transition. I remain open and patient because it will unveil itself when the time is correct, as in everything else that happens to you as you become more sensitive, more aware, more cognizant in some sense, because the brain does have a place in this that is to recognize times of change. The heart is much sensitive, of course, than the mind, but the heart, my heart, is busy being full of love, full of understanding, full of compassion. And so my mind is kind of helping out. It's kind of my witness. The heart seems to function in the now to the exclusion of everything else, whereas the mind, if trained and disciplined and used correctly, can notice, can sense times of change. It's always a climbing a hill, plateau, climbing a hill, plateau, and it's always, of course, the climbing is probably a more difficult time. But I've noticed that stepping down into the plateau, the other side of the transition of the hill is maybe more challenging. Maybe more challenged then. Because coming, I don't mean down in the physical sense of, or the vibrational sense of going lower. I mean just coming out on the other side of some transition. And maybe my hill or mountain metaphor, maybe I need to rethink that. Maybe that's not the correct, because I don't want to imply that there's a down. I want to apply or talk about the differentiation between going up, right, up and down again, between coming into a transition and emerging from a transition as a new being. After all, we're reinvented, we're reborn every moment of every day. So the last two, I'll go back over them if I can find them. I called it Awakened Selfishness and Cultivating Indifference. So this is a beginning, this is a third of this transitory experience in my development. And still, the evolution, the fullness of the transition is not apparent as we speak. I know it's headed somewhere, it always is. Who knows? How it'll emerge, except that I rest in peace knowing that it'll be an improvement. It'll be to my betterment. So what is occurring along with this idea of selfish, the necessity to be selfish for the inward experience, the exclusion of all the noise from the outside. At least I can. I can never escape the monkey mind and the noise. I've learned to ignore it. I've learned to not take it seriously. But as we speak, it's a constant. But we are masters of our domain in the sense that we can stifle the outside noise. No matter sometimes how well intentioned, but just put it on pause. Everything and everyone will be there, but you'll be able to enjoy it more because you'll come to this situation with a deeper and better understanding, a deeper and better expression of your perpetually changing status as a being of life, as a beacon of light, as a breath of fresh air, as a relief, as a comfort, sometimes even as a guide. So that was enlightened selfishness, a focus inward and the exclusion of everything that's humanly possible. For me, the universe provided me with the time. I'm not forced to go out there and slog it out with the masses. I can pick and choose. Usually it's supply runs, right? Time to go out to deal with the realities of keeping my household intact, paying bills, doing shopping. But other than that, keeping the interchange to a minimum. And then came this idea of cultivating indifference, to be as I see the universe, without judgment, with pure acceptance, equanimity, to respond to any situation from the same center of calmness, the same center of understanding, the same center as the universal love. Essentially, learning how to not let anything rattle your cage. And so-called good things can rattle it just as well as some called less than desirable occurrences in the world around you that affect you. At least you identify with it, you take it personally. And the idea is, the indifference is that since there's no person to either take it or leave it, just need to be cognizant, just need to be aware of that. But I do separate ego and personality. Personality survives. I've often used my best metaphor, my best visual inner vision of reincarnation, the renewal, is that I picture the big ocean, the mother ocean, in which we are all immersed. We're not even aware. We're just like fish. We're not even aware that we're surrounded, that we're engulfed, encased in the embrace of Mother Ocean. So Mother Ocean, the waves are, the wind blows, the tide comes, storms come, stirs the surface, doesn't it? But you don't have to go very low below the surface to find the calmness. And this is a useful, you might be stirred up on top, but you always have the resource of going inward a little bit, and you'll find immense source of calm, immense source of calmness, just as the ocean is calm, sometimes mere inches, at most a couple of feet below the surface. So this turmoil on the outside, the ocean hits an obstacle, a rock, a seashore, a boat, a surfboard, it meets resistance, and it splashes up, and the drops come back down to the mother, the ocean again. And this is where I see us, as we're that drop. And as long as we're in that process of drop, even though we don't identify with the ego, we've cast aside the ego, we still have a personality. And that personality exists from the time of impact, that the drop starts, until it joins the ocean again. This is the end of our personality. I don't see any, and there's no way, at least in my experience, there's no way to identify a previous life, because it's merged. It's part and parcel of the mother, the source of everything. So the impact, the only impact, the infinitesimal impact we can hope is that we bring something, that drop, that personality that merges with every other personality, future, past, and present, because there's no concept of linear time. We hope that this lifetime that we lead, this tiny drop that we bring, this personality that drops into the source, is positive. It contributes to the well-being in the smallest, just as a drop in the ocean But that's not to undermine the significance, the importance of this journey. This opportunity that we're given to express, to search, to evaluate. This opportunity that we've been given to contribute to the general good. And it's very grandiose that people might think that they could have more of an impact than just a single drop. But if all of us made our journey about being whole, being better, not divisive, not separated, if we can conquer our own foibles of jealousy, revenge, envy, then even though it's such a small impact on the ocean, the ripples continue into infinity. The ripple of your drop, the ripple of your personality, the ripple of your contribution, good or bad, will reverberate and be a lot more important than one might think. But be that as it may, be that as it may. Thank you. The goal. And I repeat what I've said before. What my mantra, my only mantra that I have is, I'll be a better man today than I was yesterday. And I'll be a better man tomorrow than I was today. This keeps me on track. This keeps me focused on what's important, because it's so easy in the mundane world of everyday existence to lose your sense of importance. What your own personal sense of importance. What is important to you as a spiritual expression. Now, the third step of this transition that I'm going through is what I wanted to share with you today. This was all a build-up to where I was headed. And again, even before I say the words, I can feel that the impact of these last three could be viewed as, what's the word I'm searching for? I'm really good with words normally, but I can't quite find the word. But it's in the vein of the other two about awakened selfishness and to cultivate indifference. So selfish and indifference doesn't sound too good. But I'm finding that necessary for what I'm experiencing right now, this transition. And let's see. I'll share with you when I see, if and when I can see the consequences, the results, the benefits of this change that this transition is bringing me. Now, I don't claim to understand the source of these transitions. I just have trained my mind to be conscious of, I pay attention to my body. This has to do with food, exercise, sleep. My body talks to me. My mind said, hey, something's coming. Don't know what. Buckle up your seatbelt. Get ready. We're just a passenger in this after all. This transition is greater than any of us. So I'm able to see it coming. Maybe I've had more practice of paying attention and looking. But this transition, the third part of it is what I call no words but my own. Now, awaken selfishness, cultivating indifference, and now, no words but my own. Where am I headed? I've always had those that they've been few. I'll name them now. Paramahamsa Yogananda was the earliest influence. And I was born 4 years after he transitioned, after he left his body. I was born 4 years. Paramahamsa Self-Realization Fellowship. First Indian, first Hindu monk to come and live out his life in America. And currently it's been then Adyashanti, who I had the pleasure of meeting in a small group in Hawaii. I think it was the first year that his teacher had asked him to begin teaching. I believe, I can't even calculate the year, but I'd have to ask Adya when he started, but that late 80s or early 90s, probably early 90s, first couple years of the 90s. Anyway, he made a powerful impact, and I've listened to him, and for many years, all this time, I've been drawn back to him because then I've read his books and I've really been attracted. And honestly, I got a renewed interest when I had my own abiding awakening, my own transition from temporary to permanent, from not abiding to abiding. At that time, I'll freely admit that I was looking for validation because the experience was so overwhelming, so unexpected, so unexplainable, so beyond my realm of what was possible, that in the beginning I sought validation. I thought if I could read or listen that some of the experiences that I had were shared with others. Because I knew how ordinary I was. I knew I wasn't exceptional in any way. The only exception that I claimed was that embracing my ordinariness and recognizing that there'll be a time and place for each of us to have, and your experience will be your experience. My experience was my experience. But the search for validation, it's the same thing. At that time, my teacher, I went to my teacher and I told the two closest people, I called my Taiwan mom and dad, I told them because they were my Shi Jie and Shi Shong at the group that I belonged to. They were not only my Taiwan mom and dad, but they were my spiritual brothers and sisters. So I was bubbling out of this, and I expressed that I woke up, I had the experience of waking up. So they quickly ran to my teacher, our teacher, and asked him. And in my presence, he looked directly at my mother and told her, "No, not yet," like this. Then he looked at me and he did this. And this was the beginning for me to understand that this is best left unspoken, unshared, because the people around you essentially are not prepared. It's beyond their understanding at that point. And they'll most likely end up doubting you. But this, look to, no, not yet. Look at me and smile. And that was a validation but I didn't understand at the time. I remember being very upset because I just paid attention to his words to my Shijie, my mom, my Taiwan mom. His words were no, no, no. But those words were for her. He had no words, no verbal words for me. But he did this and smile. It took me a long time to get over my bitterness and say, because at that time I thought it was really special and I accomplished something and I craved recognition in addition to the validation. And at first it took me probably 2 years to understand that this and the smile was all that I needed. And I didn't even need that because I had no doubt of my experience. I had no doubt of this, what it meant. But I wanted validation from my teacher. I shared with a couple other close people and they've come to laugh at me, well, not really laugh at me, but say, no, I don't think so. Because people are not prepared or don't want to accept it. I guess that's somewhere in between, aren't prepared and don't want to accept it. So I learned, and my advice to you is, from my experiences, when it happens, not if it happens, when it happens, keep your cards close to your vest. There's no need to share it, to shout out, even though you'll want to, and it's very difficult not to. But save everyone a little bit of grief. Those that have awakened will not confirm. I believe now that they can't even be sure. What they can be sure of is your conviction. If you have no doubt, if you understand, if you accept, they will accept. If you have doubt or question, they'll say no. But it's not really in their purview. It's not really in their job description to tell you whether or not you've awakened. So, next couple years, it took me a couple years before I finally smiled and laughed and said, yeah. And shortly after this time, I moved some distance where his classes weren't available. And basically, even though I still felt the inching, the heart-to-heart, the connection to the teacher, I had little time for the organization, the group that inevitably springs up and kinds of regulate and rules and boo, 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 and talking and the teacher said this and the teacher said that, and because he had some teachers below him that he, because his group got so big, he had people that he recognized that could share his words. But most time I heard too much of, he said that and he said that. I said, are you sure? Did you hear him say that? Well, no, but someone else told me. Yeah. And the funny thing is, even if he said it, I wouldn't have been able to know because he said it in the only language he has is Chinese, other than the language of the heart, where the real teaching lies. So I find myself out of the group, distance the group. I went to one place on this island where they didn't have a good organization, just because I was attracted to that place. This is the place for me. I had no doubt, and I'm still here, and I have no doubt to this day. But in addition to Adyashanti in the recent years, I've listened a lot to, his name escapes me for a second, but it'll come to me, another teacher, Sadhguru. Sadhguru, it just resonated with me and what he said. It's just, but part of this transition was the recognition, that the acceptance that I stopped listening. I don't listen to what others have to say. That sounds pretty bad. But when I started recognizing that there was nothing that they were saying that I hadn't already experienced, just a different take on it. But for some reason, maybe it's because I finally, 7-8 years into the abiding awakening, I not only didn't need validation, I didn't even need to listen to another's words. So this video is called No Words But My Own. My need, I think it represents the beginning of my spiritual maturity, where I can stand on my own 2 feet. Now, as I spoke last week, I've been drawn to do these sharings, these videos, and with little expectation of any huge following. I'm beginning to understand that my calling this life is not to stand up and have others bow at my feet, have the adoration, the support of a large group. My challenge is to be a monk without the get-up, without the costume, and to be a living example for any of those that can even notice me. Life provides. I'm okay. And now I stand alone, as each of us need to do at some point. I'm still full of love and respect for those that contributed, but I'm at peace. I'm at oneness of who and what I am. So let's see what's coming next. I haven't been inspired of what my next teaching might be. I have written down, your dreams will be dreaming you. But that was written a few weeks ago and it doesn't really resonate. Let's see what's coming. Let's see.